There's a couple of different ways to buy a house in New Zealand, and in Auckland, the most common one is via an auction, which is pretty annoying and expensive and risky. But I'm going to talk you through how to have an advantage at buying at auction versus negotiation and other ways. Usually what happens is a house is listed by auction. If no one buys the house at auction, it goes to via negotiation or has a price on it. Now, if you're going to buy at auction, you have to understand that if you win the auction and the property meets the reserve, you are buying that house. Whether you've checked with the bank, a builder, a lawyer, or anything else, if you win the auction, you're legally bound to buy the house. So that's why you need to make sure that you've done all of your checks beforehand. And that is why bidding in an auction is expensive, because you have to check that you can get finance for yourself and the property. You need to have a builder go through it if that's what you're going to do to make sure the house is sound. You need to have a lawyer go through all the documents. If the bank is asking you for things like a valuation, you need to do that beforehand. And you need to have your deposit ready, so then when you win the auction, you pay your deposit pretty much within 24 hours. Once you've done that, which is known as like going unconditional, then you have a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months before settlement, and then that's when you own the house. So that differs to via negotiation, price offer, or pretty much any other way, because you have the option when you do your offer via negotiation or any of those other ways to write down what you will offer plus the conditions that you want to fulfill. So basically what you're saying is you're making a conditional offer. I will buy your house for $1 million on the condition that we have a satisfactory building report, I can get finance, and my lawyer is happy, plus any other conditions that your lawyer recommends. And that means that the seller is accepting your $1 million offer, and then you go and do those conditions, and as long as you're happy with them, then you go unconditional, pay the deposit, and wait till settlement. Now, doing it that way is not as favorable, I suppose, as if you do all those other conditions beforehand. So for example, instead of saying, I'll buy your house for $1 million on the condition of X, Y, and Z, you could just say, I'll buy a house for $1 million on the condition of a building report. And that means that from the seller's point of view, all that it like rests on is one satisfactory building report, not finance, not a lawyer, not anything else. But it means that you have to do those other things before you make your offer. So you still have to do them. You're either doing them beforehand and then making your offer to make your offer look stronger, or don't do them, put them in your offer, and then do them once your offer is accepted. So you've got to understand the pros and cons of each, because if you're making a conditional offer with those things in there, then it's not as strong compared to somebody else that doesn't have them in there. But then if you try and do your building report and all of that other stuff first before you make your offer, someone else could come along and make an offer and then take the property off the market. So you've got to really weigh it up on the property itself, on terms of how popular it is and how risk averse you are, I suppose. The other thing you got to keep in mind is that sometimes via negotiation or priced listings will go to a multi-offer, and that basically means that you're not the only person making an offer, and therefore it changes the mindset around how you make your offer, because before you probably were thinking, I'll just lowball them and they'll negotiate me up. If you're going up against people, you don't really have that luxury, because there's other people that you're competing with, so you need to make your offer as strong as possible, remove as many conditions as you're happy with because you've done them beforehand, and put your best foot forward. Hope that makes sense. The next video below is going to talk to you about how you can make an offer better without changing the price, because obviously most people are limited by their budget.